just make sure our PCT is good. So, all right.
So sorry, do you have are you going to activate the interpreting function?
Yeah, I am going to. I'm going to first do this spiel without anything, like we haven't really officially started. And then Chair Gorin will do the intro, and then I'll have you do kind of a brief intro in Spanish to everyone. Sure. And then I'll go ahead and flip you into the translation mode. Does that work?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Okay, so good evening and welcome to our regularly scheduled Tuesday, October 25th meeting of the Half Moon Bay Planning Commission. Just a few things to talk about before we get officially started. This meeting is live on Comcast local channel 27 and the Pacific Coast TV's website. We have several community members in the audience this evening, and everyone in attendance does have and will have the opportunity to speak. To review that with the attendees, the Planning Commission Chair will open and allow a general public comment session or section prior to specific items being talked about. The Chair will open it up, those items will be discussed, and then those willing to speak will be able to speak at that time. You'll need to raise your virtual icon hand to assist us with that public comment. If you're dialing by phone this evening, push *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise your hand and unraise yourself. If you're using computers and any other device, you will just need to use the icon feature on your Zoom. You'll be given 3 minutes of each commenter will be given 3 minutes, and there will be a timer on the screen. The public comment, there were some public comments that did come in and were received to Scott Phillips after our agenda was published last week. So he will be discussing that further on that item. We do also now offer Spanish translation, and it will be provided this evening. So I thank you for your continued patience during our remote meetings, and we'll now hand it over to Chair Gorin to officially begin tonight.
Thank you, Bridget. So I'm glad to open this October 25th meeting of the Half Moon Bay Planning Commission. We're going to start with Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd all rise and join me, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America.
And to the republic for which it stands.
And
one
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Bridget, can we have a roll call?
Yes, I'm going to officially do the translation. Just wanted to let you know that Kelly and Kimberly, you guys can start. I'm going to push start and let you guys go on your end. Okay, so roll call. Commissioner Reddick.
I'm here.
Commissioner Gossett.
Here.
Commissioner Benjamin is out this evening, and so is Commissioner Hernandez, and so we have Chair Gorin.
I'm here.
Yes, we have 3 commissioners present this evening.
Great. So we're going to start with approval of minutes from, September 27th.
Correct.
Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Bags, any bottles? And that is nothing. So we have a Commissioner Reddick.
I move we approve those minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Commissioner Reddick.
Yes.
Commissioner Gossett.
Yes.
And Chair Gorin.
Yes, please.
Motion approved.
Great. So we have a moment for public comment for anything that is not on the agenda tonight. So if you have a comment on something that is on the agenda, you have to wait until a little bit later, not much later. But this is for anyone who has a comment unrelated to the agenda. Raise your little icon hand and we can have you speak. I am seeing no one. So I'm open and close. I'm not, we'll move along on that one. And we'll start with our our first item. So this is an application for coastal development permit and architectural review for a new house. It's a 2-story single-family house on Guerrero, 63 Guerrero. And Jill, hi.
Mr. Chair,
Scott's gonna kick it off.
if I may, I'd like to, you may have noticed that we have a new face in the virtual meeting this evening. We,
Scott Phillips.
one of our newest members, staff members to community development started last July, Okoye Wilson, and we're so happy to have her. She grew up in a small town in Colorado, similar size to Half Moon Bay. So she knows what it's like to live and work in a small town, and just wanted to give a little introduction and before she goes into the item that she'll be presenting this evening. Thank you.
I'll try not to be too hard on you. So you're presenting tonight.
Yes.
Correct.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Gorn, as well as members of the Planning Commission for having me this evening. I'll go ahead and share my screen. So today I have a proposal for a new single-family residence and attached ADU at 63 Guerrero Street. The proposal is for a coastal development permit for the single-family residence and attached ADU and architectural review. It's in the zoning district R1B1 and has a land use designation of residential medium density. They currently have one 5/8" non-priority water connection for them, and their sewer will be through Granada Community Services District. And the project will also include improvements, street improvements through the improvement of the swale. The proposed house is located on the northwest side of Guerrero Street. It is an infill lot with ruderal vegetation and no heritage trees or any trees on the site. The lot being infill shouldn't cause any issues from views from the coastal trail. As you can see from photo in the bottom left corner here, that this is towards the end of the street, towards the coastal trail, and the house would fall within the boundaries of the other homes, not creating any new visual problems from the trail. The house or the lot is substandard for the R1B1 zoning designation. The lot is only 4,376 square feet, and the standard for R1B1 is 6,000 square feet. The lot also only has a 40-foot average site width, as opposed to the 60-foot average site width for R1B1. That being said, the proposal is not looking for any sort of variance. They are conforming to all of the standards of R1B1. The only change is being substandard, they are allotted one garage space and one car space that can be in tandem with each other, which they have incorporated into their design. They are conforming with all of the setbacks. They even provide an additional 6 inches to the eastern neighbor for the side setback. And then as they go further back in the property, are providing additional setback from the neighboring property lines. As you can see from the site plan, they're also incorporating several new trees that will act as additional privacy and also give character to the property. You can also see on the western side, the western neighbor has a bit more space from the property line due to the orientation of their home. So privacy is a bit less of a concern there, but they still took it into effect or into consideration throughout their design. Here you can see a rendering of the front of the home as well as the elevations for the front and south facing part of the home. They are in conformance with the maximum building envelope, and they aren't actually even to the maximum height. They are at just over 26 feet in height, and they're allotted 28 feet. They also, you can see here, there's a wraparound balcony that is south facing and west facing. This is good for lighting and to be enjoyed and enjoy the coastal views, as well as it acts as a cover to the front door and the one-car garage, which you can also see is set back from the property or from the front of the house, de-emphasizing the garage's presence, which is in conformance with our single-family residential guidelines. They also maximize the windows on the front of the house, which provides measures for passive heating and cooling, and also allows more light into the house. Here you can see the rear elevations and the north facing elevation. They also have a small balcony on the second story that's coming off from the primary bedroom. They also have a small bay with a shed roof that you can see to the east of the balcony. And that's also incorporated to provide more privacy to the eastern neighbor, while also being able to enjoy the balcony out back. You can also see in this rendering some of their dark sky light fixtures that are being proposed on the side of the home. And the rear balcony also acts as a cover to the ADU entrance that is on the bottom there in the rear. You can also see in the design here that they have incorporated a series of open gable and shed roofs throughout the design to kind of offset the look and also comply with our single family residential guidelines. Here we have the eastern elevation. Again, you can see here the series of offset roofs. You can also see that they've minimized the windows to emphasize privacy to the eastern neighbor. They also have sunlights, which help maximize the amount of light, or sorry, skylights that help maximize the amount of light that is coming into the home without having to have more windows. So meeting both of those for our guidelines. Here you have the western elevations and another rendering. You can see on this side, they have a few more windows compared to the eastern side, but they're still minimizing it compared to the front and the rear. And they have a bit more space from their western neighbor here. So privacy is a bit of a less concern, but they're still considering that in their design and placement of the windows. You can also see on this side the solar that they are incorporating into the roofing, and it is incorporated into the roof where it's not coming up above the roof and creating any sort of visual hindrance on the home. Here you have the floor plans. It is a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath home with a studio ADU. The ADU is about 297 square feet in the rear ground floor of the home. You can see they have their main living space on the second floor with the kitchen, living room, and dining room, as well as the primary bedroom. On the bottom, they have the single car garage with 2 other bedrooms and the ADU. Here they have drainage and grading plans, which Public Works has reviewed and approves of. You can also see the swale improvements that are being incorporated. As part of the drainage plan, all downspouts are leading to a 400-gallon cistern, and any additional overflow will go into a detention basin. Both of those can be seen. The detention basin is here, if you can see my laser, as well as the cistern just above it. On their landscaping plans, they've incorporated a lot of pervious pavers through the walkway and driveway, as well as keeping lighter colors for lower albedo. And that also you can see the cistern located underneath a little front sitting area they have here. But again, those pavers are pervious, allowing the water to enter that cistern underground. They also have a very in-depth landscape plan, and they provide additional information in their plans as to the size of each tree they're incorporating and plants. And they provide several California native species as well as Mediterranean adaptive species in their landscaping plan. As a suggestion from the AAC, the Architectural Advisory Committee, one suggestion was to present an exterior colors and materials board. The architect put one together demonstrating the different materials that'll be used. They are using a fiber cement board siding, and that should be more resilient to the coastal weather, requires a bit less maintenance, but also gives it a nice wood look that fits in well with the neighborhood. This project is CEQA exempt due to Section 15303 of the California Administrative Code. This applies to new construction or conversion of small structures, and that includes single-family residences in residential zones. As I mentioned throughout the presentation, they're in compliance with many of the single-family residential guidelines and really took these into consideration throughout the design of their home. They also are in compliance with the zoning code and LCP implementation. As part of their Measure D approval, they chose to incorporate several of the elements, as you can see here, and many of those elements I tried to mention throughout my presentation, though there are several more. They also, as I mentioned, they were well supported by the AAC, and they took into consideration the AAC's comments and tried to implement what they could to align with that. Throughout the process, the applicants have also been very open with the neighbors about the project and even hosted a neighborhood meetup event to show them the design of the home and answer any questions that people may have had. They also chose to, while story poles were not required for this project, they chose to stake out the outline of the home on the lot in order to help show the neighbors during that time what the footprint of the house might be on the lot. Overall, staff recommends to adopt the resolution approving PDP 2242 to allow the construction of a new residence and attached accessory dwelling unit at 63 Guerrero. The architect and design team is logged in today, as well as the applicant. And so any clarifying comments they can also help answer. Based on the above analysis, like I said, staff proposes to approve this due to it being, to approve the proposed single family home due to the home and ADU being consistent with the general plan and the local coastal land use plan, the residential guidelines, and being compatible with the surrounding development of the neighborhood. This concludes staff's presentation, and I'm happy to answer any clarifying questions or open it up for public comment.
Thank you, Okoye Wilson. That was really clear and detailed. That was really good. Before we start talking about this, I want to open this up to public comment so we can hear from people on the coast. So now is the time, if you're in the audience, to raise your hand so you can talk about this issue. I'm going to see who's here. We do have a couple. Bridget?
Yeah, let me just unmute. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, first I have Stefan to speak, and then Una is following.
Yes, hi, this is Stefan and Kirsten. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Stefan, you
Okay, I hope this was the right time to comment, but Kirsten and I, we just wanted to say hi and thank the Planning Commission and the Planning Department, especially Okoye and Scott. Okoye, that was a great overview, but we've gotten a lot of help and guidance. We're appreciative of that. And we're just excited to build a home in the community. We've got 2 longtime dear friends in that little neighborhood. So we've been there many times and met a lot of the neighbors. It's an amazing group, a lovely setting. Scott and Okoye also suggested that neighborhood gathering where we met even more neighbors, and one family brought homemade cookies, and we got lots of tips and advice. And so we just keep getting more and more excited as we progress through the steps.
Yeah, this is Kirsten. I echo the neighbors have been so warm. The neighbors we've met, it's been really incredible. And we'd like to introduce our architect, Una Kinsella. We've worked with Una a while back, and we really like her design and style. We're very confident in her and love working with her, and we love what she's designed for this project. So Una, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thanks, Stefan and Kirsten. My name's Una Kinsella. I am a local Bay Area architect, so I'm very excited to be working on this project. And I've been working with Stefan and Kirsten for about a year now. We pushed hard to get through that Measure D application, which was my first time, but we were so excited to have been honored to receive those 2 allotments. And now we've been pushing hard since April, May time when we got that approval, and fine-tuning the design and working with wonderful local landscape architect, Steve Kikuchi, and soils engineer, civil engineer, trying to really design this as well as we can. A great team we've got together. And Okoye, that was an amazing presentation. I usually have to say all the things that you've just covered when I give my presentation. So you've made my job really easy tonight. I just wanted to highlight a couple of additional things that were important to our design. And one of them was we really did do a study of the neighborhood and look at the roof forms, the massing of the neighboring houses, and it's a bit of an eclectic neighborhood, but we did borrow some of the roof forms and material look and feel, and while trying to create a unique sort of modern coastal home for Kirsten and Stefan. And I think that I hope that you guys will agree that we've really designed something that will fit nicely into the neighborhood. We are quite a bit smaller than the neighboring houses, which is nice for us because we tuck nicely between 2 rather large homes and some homes across the street. So we feel that we're sort of the smaller, maybe quieter neighbor there. So that was nice as a new development to be able to do that. We've created an ADU as part of this project and an accessible entrance. Steve's done a really great job, Steve Kikuchi, of creating a lot of outdoor gathering spaces. And we've really put a lot of emphasis on designing the landscaping around the entire home, not just in the front, which is like you see oftentimes on new developments. So he's created a really beautiful outdoor space in the rear yard as well as the front. So it'll be really nice to look down on for those neighbors who do have second stories looking into the backyard. But it's also going to be a nice outdoor space for the ADU. I wanted to also just say that we're working with Charles Kissick from Sigma Prime, the civil engineer, who really understands this neighborhood. And we're really hoping to find a builder who also has done a lot of work in the neighborhood, who understands the constraints of the conditions of the neighborhood, who understands how to build with long-lasting materials, and will make some further recommendations for building techniques and stuff that will really help this house look great for a really long time. So I just want to thank you for your time this evening, and I'm available to answer any other questions about the design or the process that we've gone through to get to here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to speak about this project?
I'm seeing none.
Seeing none, I am going to close public comment. After all that, it certainly is going to be hard to be mean to this project, so I'm sure we will try. Let's start with commissioners. Does anybody have a comment or question? Commissioner Reddick, the floor is yours.
I have a clarifying question. I'd like to welcome Assistant Planner Wilson to our gathering. Is Ocoee the right pronunciation of your first name?
That's correct. Yes. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. You and I exchanged email yesterday about the AAC input to this project, which was very positive. I'd appreciate it if, just for the record, you could summarize for us the AAC comments and which of those the current form of the application has incorporated.
Certainly. Some of the AAC recommendations regarded, as I mentioned, the color and materials board, which they were able to provide. They also suggested putting a battery backup for this solar on the plans, which I forgot to mention, but they did incorporate into the plans. Some of the other comments involved raising the slab height of the home in order to keep the house warm and dry, being in such a wet environment and being a bit set down. But unfortunately, the applicants took this into consideration, but with the maximum building envelope, I believe they came to the conclusion that they couldn't raise the height of the slab without encroaching into the maximum building envelope. So even though they had a bit more room to the maximum height, it was very tight on the envelope on the sides. They already have a little bit of encroachment, but it is allowed due to section 1806040 of the municipal code. So that area is allowed, but they wouldn't be able to encroach any more into that building envelope. Other comments involved that back small bay near the rear balcony, and that looking a bit like an addition to the home, and whether or not they could incorporate a different roofing style to the home. I believe, again, the applicants took this into consideration, but ultimately decided to keep it as is. I think the architect may have a bit more information on why that was. If you'd like her to clarify that, I'm sure she'd be happy to as well.
So it was really—
That's helpful to me. Thank you very much.
So it was just the slab and the roofing style in the back that they didn't incorporate. Is that right?
I believe so. That's all I can recall. Yes.
All right, thanks. Do any commissioners have any other questions or comments? Commissioner Gossett.
Thank you, Oki, for a very nice presentation, and welcome to the planning department. I have one question that I was wondering, since the ADU is below the master bedroom, will there be efforts made to dampen noise from the second floor to the ADU, especially around water drainage with the bathroom plumbing and such, footsteps, and to dampen the noise in the ADU? That's just one question I had. And otherwise, wow, the design is beautiful. I thought it was really a well done design. I was really impressed with how the neighbors, the applicant got together with the new neighbors to talk about their project and to get their feedback in the beginning. I think that's really goes a long way. I commend them for that. And I also was not aware until I read this report that storm drain polluters could be liable for fines up to $1,000 per day, only because, I didn't realize that could actually happen. So thank you. That was it.
To touch on your question regarding if there's any dampening, I'm not aware of whether or not that has been implemented. This is something that the architect also may know more on, whether or not there are plans to implement some dampening elements to the flooring.
Can we hear from Una?
Yeah, I'd love to address that. Thanks, Commissioner Gossett. That's an amazing question. And I think the good news is when we do multifamily housing, and this in a sense is considered that, the code actually requires us to meet a certain STC rating, sound transmission coefficient rating. So we will be required to actually create, to design into the floor ceiling assembly and also the wall to wall assembly between the ADU and the primary dwelling will be required to meet a certain STC rating. And I'm pretty emphatic about, especially around plumbing fixtures, because it happens even in single family homes where you can hear a toilet flush or a tub empty or something like that. So using, making sure you use cast iron drainage and sound insulating walls is something that I'm pretty emphatic about. But thanks for raising that question. It's a good one.
Any other comments, questions? Commissioner Reddick, nothing? Okay, so.
Well, I don't have any more clarifying questions, but I'd be happy to comment if you want to move to that portion.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I find this a very impressive application to take a substandard infill lot like this and to come up with such a beautiful design that seeks no variances. The building and color, the material and color palette is, I think, very well done. High quality outreach and communication with the neighbors. So I'm 100% supportive of this.
Yeah, I was, normally when there's a substandard lot, there's usually an attempt to build out as much as possible, and to have a substandard lot with no variances is pretty impressive, especially given how sort of sizable the house looks. So when I went down there to check out the height, because that's always something I'm concerned with, I did actually notice that the design of the roof matched the neighborhood look, even though there's several different types. I thought this house is amazing. I didn't see really anything that I would take issue with. So I also really like that the solar doesn't approach the lip of the roof. Yeah, fully in support. Unless Commissioner Gossett has something else that she wants to raise, we can take a motion. Commissioner Reddick.
I move we approve the resolution at hand.
And we have a second? We do.
I second that.
Commissioner Gossett. Roll call, please, Bridget.
Commissioner Gossett,
Yes.
Commissioner Reddick,
Yes.
and Chair Gorin.
Yes, please.
Motion approved as read.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So we're going to move on to our next item, which is a coastal development permit for replacement of culverts. Jill, do you want to explain what staff has in mind for this one?
Again, I'm going to pitch it over to Scott, who's prepared to update you, and hopefully you all got your memo this afternoon. Okay, great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Commission. I hope everyone had a fun pumpkin festival, and happy to see everyone this evening. And you're right, this is kind of a unique proposal. It's, normally there's more than just a culvert replacement with proposals reviewed by the Planning Commission. But I'll give a brief PowerPoint presentation and go into mention the memo that was distributed late this afternoon. Let's see.
Thanks, Scott.
Share screen. Okay, I thought this was appropriate, being that we're the tail end of pumpkin season for opening slide. And okay, so as we mentioned, this proposal includes the replacement of 2 culverts with 1 culvert along the Pullman watercourse towards the western end within the state park. And now, since the site is within a watercourse and potentially within proximity of sensitive habitat, a coastal development permit is needed before replacing these, taking out these culverts and putting in the new one. And the site is actually considered Army Corps jurisdiction as well. So separate permits through Army Corps, Regional Water Quality Control Board, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, State Fish and Wildlife will be needed after the coastal development permit is issued and before this work can take place. Now, a little background on the culvert itself. Both the coastal trail and a driveway accessing a beach parking lot go over the culvert. And in all likelihood, the culvert was installed in the 80s and has clearly come to the end of its usable lifespan. During winter 2018, that's when I noticed that the driveway accessing the beach parking lot began to collapse into the undercut outfall, sort of the outfall undercutting away at the soil. And the roadway has continued to fail each winter since then. In 2020, state parks, it got to the point where they had to close the driveway that accesses the parking lot, and it's remained closed since then. And leading up to this meeting, we did receive some comments, 3 emails with some concerning comments. We evaluated the comments and came to the conclusion that a little more work needs to be done before this proposal should be considered for approval by the Planning Commission. Key items that are missing are hydrological analysis related to the new culvert. And then also, you probably noticed in the staff report that we had a condition of approval recommending that a coastal access plan be reviewed prior to construction. After receiving some of the comments, it makes sense to get a little more robust coastal access plan and construction timeline before the issuance of the coastal development permit. Now, with those additional items, we are recommending a continuance of this item, but ask that the Planning Commission hold a public hearing. We're very interested in your feedback on this, as well as what any folks from the community have to say about the culvert replacement. And this will help state parks and, as we prepare the additional items to present back to you at a future date. Now, I do want to mention that this is a unique item, along with just the replacement of the culverts with 1 culvert. They have integrated avoidance measures to biological resources as part of the project. And that involves wildlife exclusionary fencing, conducting surveys by a qualified biologist, biological monitoring, worker training to be conducted by a qualified biologist before the work takes place. And then also it's probably in all likelihood, some of the riparian plants, at least to the west of the culvert site, will be trampled during construction. All of that needs to be replanted at a 1-to-1 ratio. And in the event that there is some permanent removal of riparian vegetation, a 3-to-1 replacement ratio will need to be implemented. And we've been working with state parks on how to sort of grapple with the replacement and how to handle that. No trees would be removed during this process. Now, just to give you an overview, this was the slide shows the proposed layout of the new culvert. Once the existing 24-inch and 18-inch corrugated pipes are removed, this culvert would be installed. 48-inch RCP is what it's referred to, reinforced concrete pipe. And then also upstream and downstream head walls that the pipe would be installed in between, as well as a rock energy dissipator on the outfall of the pipe to reduce the energy and for the basically what you see right now out there, the undercutting, that would eliminate the undercutting from taking place in the future. Also, split rail guardrails would be installed on both sides. There's only one right now because the other one has actually sloughed off into the undercut. But that would be part of the installation, sort of cleaning up the roadway and the coastal trail and installing the guardrails on both sides. This slide includes a section of the new pipe, showing the side profile with the head walls, the rock energy dissipator, and the rebuilt roadway above. Now, just a little bit about the trail access. I think we did receive a few comments about, what's going to take place during construction and how are people going to be able to access the coastal trail during construction. In all likelihood, this is going to require some closure of the coastal trail, especially during demolition. But that's one reason why we're asking for a more detailed access plan. And, we've also explored the idea of, during construction, it can be phased one side to the other, and a sort of a temporary movable bridge can be placed over the waterway to allow for temporary access to the coastal trail during non-working hours. We've also worked with state parks and collectively agreed that it doesn't make sense to allow work on weekends and busy holidays, that would just need to be closed up. And the roads and trails coordinator at state parks is actually logged in this evening, so that it'll be helpful to hear what they have to say on that. But again, we are asking for a more detailed public access plan and construction schedule before the CDP is issued. Now, a few things for the Planning Commission to consider: conformance with our land use plan and zoning, as well as the California Environmental Quality Act. Now, a couple of things with our land use plan. This is just a brief overview of what was included in the staff report. The land use plan does contain several policies related to infrastructure and Coastal Act priority uses. The proposal would fix a drainage infrastructure that supports access to a beach parking lot, which is clearly coastal access priority. By replacing the culvert, the use of the coastal access parking lot would be restored. And then also the coastal trail itself. I mean, if this isn't addressed soon, we're going to lose probably the current access on the coastal trail. So that would prolong the use of the coastal trail. Part of the proposal includes biological surveys and monitoring during construction, and any riparian plants removed during construction would be restored. And Arroyo Willow in particular, the main person from state parks that I've been working with is, a plant biologist, and she's reassured us that Arroyo Willow is actually a really easy plant to, for restoration purposes to use. And then also the coastal trail is considered a visual resource within our land use plan. The site is also within a broad ocean view shed, figure 9.1 in our land use plan. And the fortunate thing is that the height of the improvements would not be substantially different than what's out there right now. You know, the guardrails, a slight increase in grade, but fairly unnoticeable. And in zoning code, best management practices would be implemented during construction, as well as water course protection. And then coastal access would be restored, similar to the land use plan, Chapter 1840. This proposal would essentially, memorialize this access to the beach parking lot. Now, this is we ran into this a few months ago, the Planning Commission, where we're with Caltrans, that we're not the lead agency, but the responsible agency as far as CEQA. This is a similar situation with state parks. State Parks has an internal project review process where they circulate more of a more basic checklist than the CEQA initial study to determine whether or not a project is categorically exempt. In this case, State Parks did determine that the project was categorically exempt, prepared the exemption, and posted it at the state clearinghouse. That was attached to your staff report. And as the responsible agency, the Planning Commission would need to concur with the State Parks determination. Of course, we're not recommending an approval tonight, but once it gets to that point, that's something that the Planning Commission would need to, to put some thought into, and whether or not you're comfortable with the exemption. We recommend a continuance to a date uncertain to allow for preparation of like I mentioned earlier, the hydrological study, as well as more detail on the coastal access plan and construction timeline. Again, we recommend that Planning Commission conduct the public hearing, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. Joanne from State Parks, as well as the roads and trails coordinator, they're both logged in this evening. They're available for any questions or feedback as well. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Scott. I don't really want to jump the gun here, but what is being done up until something's being done to fix that? Because that is it's a current problem and will be when more rain comes. So is there something being done now to shore up that, especially the west side of that?
Not at this point. And we did have some discussion with State Parks on whether or not it made sense to issue an emergency permit. Mm-hmm. Now, typically emergency CDPs are for temporary fixes, right, something that'll be removed later on, or right, sort of a Band-Aid type situation.
Exactly.
What they'd like to do is put their resources into a permanent fix. And they're hopeful that they can start construction next summer. So
that's a long time from now.
Yes, that's correct. So
okay. Thank you. I guess with our new format, we're going to open this up to public comment first before we start talking about this. So if there's anyone in the public who wants to ask a question or raise an issue with the culvert, now is the time to raise your hand and talk about it. I am seeing none.
No one.
So we're going to skip the public comment part of this, unless somebody changes their mind, and we'll move on to commissioners. So no clarifying questions or any kind of questions, feel free. Nobody?
I do have some questions.
Yes.
So I guess the question is, like, for you, Scott, is the entire water ditch considered Half Moon Bay public land? And that's my question. Or is it considered adjacent to property owners' private property. I
So
hope that makes sense.
It does, and I thank you for asking that question. Pullman Watercourse is very unique in that most of the watershed starts on the other side of the highway, runs through two culverts underneath the highway, and then empties onto several private properties as you continue west. Eventually, the Pullman Watercourse runs into state park lands, and the proposal tonight only involves state park lands. So,
and I understand that. Thank you for clarifying that, because along the entire watercourse, only from the west side of Highway 1, some of it is riparian, and then others are, it looks like have been improved. And the question I would have is that, since certain areas have been improved, has that exacerbated the problem with the culvert failing over time? And so, because it just leads me to wonder if, since part of the culvert has been modified, how effective will any culvert be? And so that's just one question I have about that.
Yeah, and it's it's a fair question. I think that the easy answer is that the existing culvert out there has reached the end of its life. It was, in my opinion, probably little engineering actually went into the existing culvert. For example, the head wall, the upstream head wall for the existing culvert includes concrete sandbags that were placed out there, and you can actually notice water that holes in the between the sandbags where the water is percolated through and eroded away behind the head wall. So my guess, part of this is it'll help to have a little more hydrological feedback on what exactly is going on, and that'll help us. So.
And in doing the studies, I think you have to evaluate, not just the portion that Caltrans wants to look at, but you have to evaluate the water course itself. I don't know. I think that just sort of makes sense, especially since there are a couple homes that do experience flooding in that area. And is that due to improvements made to the water course that's impacting folks downstream? Have they caused their own flooding issues? I don't know. But I think, from that standpoint, to protect flooding in the neighborhood, in addition to other issues that, we won't even get to yet. It just seems like that's why I think it's important to have some kind of hydrogeological study done. I don't think you could do it in just like one little section of the culvert or the water course. That's what I meant to say. I'm sorry.
Just to, through the chair, I'd like to respond a little bit to
Yes,
thank you. The thinking about the water course as a whole. Our city engineer is here tonight, and he can speak to that. Of course, this project is a state parks project, not Caltrans, it's state parks, and focused on some failed infrastructure in a kind of a spot location. Appreciating Commissioner Gossett's thinking about the entire water course. The city engineer is, and our public works director, Maziar Bozorginia, is overseeing a stormwater master plan update. And in that plan, they will be looking at a number of the water courses in the way that you're describing, Commissioner Gossett, as a whole, thinking through about changes that have been made on the course of them. You know, you're very astute at noticing how much it varies from property to property, and coming up with some green infrastructure approaches to improving those drainages. So I don't know if it's appropriate to speak to it tonight. The storm water master plan isn't specifically on the agenda, but it's something that I'm sure Maz could give you a little more background than Scott and I can in terms of what he's working on doing for this one and other water courses.
Hi, Jill. Sorry, hi everyone. I was trying to get my headset on. Apologies. Yeah, I'm happy to come back and do an update on some of the things that are happening on. Hi, sorry. Yes, Maz Virginia, interim public works director and city engineer. I just wanted to echo what Jill said and mention that I'm happy to come back and provide an update on some of the things that we're working on with regards to our water courses and some of our stormwater features. So, but Jill did a good summary of that, so appreciate that. And if I can talk more about it, or if we want to, I think it'd be more appropriate to come. I can come back and provide a more thorough update of a lot of the different stuff we're working on.
I didn't intend for you to discuss it tonight. I'm just putting it out on the public record that this should be considered, only due to the fact that they're going to, you know, they have to do something to repair that area, which I am all in favor of. But are they doing it in vain? You know, if we don't understand what's going on upstream, I mean, from that's the only reason I'm putting that on the public record. Thank you.
Yeah, and well stated, Commissioner. Thank you.
To piggyback on Commissioner Gossett's comments, I have also wondered, you know, just not based on evidence, but on what I've seen, when that area to the east of the trail was disked repeatedly, that's when that culvert started to, I believe, get more water. There was more drainage, and you know, I know it was a bad culvert to begin with, especially at that point, at that spot. But I do wonder if the property owners on the east side of the trail maybe could do something to mitigate that and to not have any increase in drainage.
And through the chair, just a little yellow light here that this, you know, thank you. This project that we have before us is a specific project, and we haven't agendized talking about other projects. So I think this is still related, but I just wanted to kind of wave a little flag here before we get off the agenda topic. Thank you.
I guess, you know, we're not going to vote on this, and staff is just looking for input. So that's, Commissioner.
Thank you. I'm grateful for Commissioner Benjamin's deep knowledge in this sphere. I think even when he's unable to be at this meeting, he's added value to this process, to our process. And one of the points he raised is exactly what Commissioner Gossett is referencing. You know, if, for instance, if you increase the diameter of the culvert, what does that do to the flow upstream? So in any case, I'm very supportive of the recommendation that we continue this and hold a public hearing that encompasses the proposed coastal access measures that we would take. As everyone knows, the inconvenience and the pain of detours to the coastal trail are such that I really hope that we can minimize that. I'm very interested in the concept Scott mentioned briefly of a temporary and movable bridge that might enable that detour to be quite minimal. But so in any case, I'm in favor of doing what staff recommends on this matter tonight.
Scott, can you tell me what you meant by Royal Willow is easy to use? I didn't understand that. You're saying
yes,
place because it's going to come down.
I think the applicant Joanne Krivovaz would probably be better equipped to answer that question, and I think that maybe hearing from the roads and trails manager also from State Parks might be helpful. So.
Thanks for the unmute. I'm on a different computer than usual, so you nod if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, I appreciate the opportunity. I really appreciate all the help.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my name is Joanne Krivovaz. I'm a senior environmental scientist from California State, and I've been living and working in the San Mateo Coast for over 20 years. And I do appreciate everything that the city staff have done to help us along this way. From our perspective, our priority is reopening that parking lot and the facilities. The restroom and the trash facilities have been closed, and it's had a significant impact, as well as the parking, which we all know is limited during crowded weekends. So we're really hoping to get that done. And we also really prevent additional damage that would threaten the coastal trail. And although we understand completely the pain that comes with any impact on the use of the coastal trail, we also know that if we don't approach this situation fairly quickly, we could face an even longer closure to fix the damage that's done. So with that in mind, we are hoping to proceed as quickly as we can, recognizing the real concerns from commissioners and the public. So just to the Royal Willow, I can tell you that one is extremely easy to grow. I don't know if you were involved along Pilarcitos Creek, but the way you grow new willows is to take cuttings and hammer them into the ground. And they are very aggressive at starting. So we have no fear that if there is some damage to the Royal Willow, that will be extremely easy to restore. And in fact, the willow is naturally spreads vegetatively. And so it has already spread in that area. Looking back at aerial photos, you can see how quickly it colonized and expanded in that area. So even though this is riparian vegetation, has some habitat values simply for the cover that's provided, the actual plant community is very simple and actually one of the few places that you really can very quickly restore it.
So while I have you here, can I also ask you the additional damage that you're talking about, can that also be additional damage to the banks there? I mean, over the next year, I imagine we're going to see something that looks very different from what it looks like now. What do you see?
That's a really good question. I mean, the main impact has been the culverts have actually leaked. So water has gone around the culverts and not through in many places. And so that has caused additional damage, mainly underneath the road. That's part of what's caused that. The banks, I have not seen failure as much, even though the banks are fairly steep in that area. So, barring, I mean, I guess we're presuming it's a La Nina, barring the significant large rainfall events. I'm not sure if we're going to see damage to those banks.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we, barring a La Nina event is probably.
Or an El Nino. I think right now we're thinking we're a La Nina, but then they sometimes say that's more rain too. So I don't know. But I think the damage that we're seeing is really associated with the outfall, the culverts and the outfall of the culverts.
Well, just eyeball from seeing it over a period of time, it has changed significantly in the last year or so, and not just the threat, the threat to the trail, but the course of that water there has changed as well. So anyway, I just wondered what sort of what if there was something that Parks had in mind, to sort of watch that or plan for that.
It's an excellent point. And again, I think, Scott, as Scott said, we're hoping for a permanent solution because we know that anything we do there requires a level of analysis. And so I think we hope to go straight towards something that will be a longer term fix.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And if you do have questions, Chris Pereira is on and is an expert on road and trail construction.
Hello, I'm Chris Pereira. I'm the Roads and Trails Manager. Excuse me?
Yes, Chris Pereira.
Yes, I'm the Roads and Trails Manager for the Santa Cruz District. I've been dealing with roads and trails in our district for about 24 years, and I'm familiar with this location. So wanted to speak to a couple points that Scott brought up during his presentation. And I don't know the long-term history of those culverts that were placed in there because they predate my time in parks. But what I've seen there is that was a combination of over a course of a couple of years that different culverts were laid in there to address an increased amount of water that was coming down that ditch line. So if you look at those culverts, there's a combination of concrete and steel, and they were mended together.
Yep.
So, you know, when you're having a patchwork that's put in, you're going to have failures happening at different rates. And then also those culverts were laid relatively flat, which creates a shotgunning effect. And now your water is shooting out as opposed to matching the grade above and below that crossing. And that aids in more like excessive erosion happening there. So we've got a couple things going on there that I think is aided in. One is the deterioration over time, and then one is how they were actually placed in that drainage crossing. And so I think if we, as Joanne stated, if we don't address this sooner than later, then the problem will exacerbate itself and we will get more head cutting leading back up into the roadway as well as the coastal trail.
So that failure of the culvert, you believe is over a long period of time or happened pretty quickly? It seems like it happened pretty quickly.
Oh, no. I mean, I think the issues with culverts is we tend not to see them because they're under roadways, right? So, you know, the deterioration is happening while we don't see it. And then it's, by time it showcases itself, it's usually during a heavy winter event or something that, you know, there's something big that kind of takes it out. So it's really hard to determine when it started. But my guess, it's been many years in the making. So.
And you don't expect there to be significant change in the next year or two if you leave it alone?
That's really hard to say. I don't think we should wait 2 years. I think we could probably expect more failure of that roadway if we're looking at 2 years.
Yeah, it seems like it. Thank you.
Yeah. I would also like to, I know there was some discussion about the concern of going from 2 culverts to 1 culvert. And like I stated before, well, I'm actually referring to some comments that were discussed about a concern with upsizing the culvert. It's not a good practice to use 2 culverts to funnel water under a roadway like that. It's better to have 1 larger diameter culvert that can handle woody debris and larger objects that flow downstream, and they can pass unimpeded through that culvert. When you put 2 smaller diameter, you tend to create a dam and things back up, and then you can promote more failure. So part of the best management plan for this project is to upsize the culvert so it can handle larger storm events, which we all know are happening, as well as handling any debris that might be flowing downstream to that new culvert site.
Thank you. Do we have more questions or more issues? I am seeing none. Anyone want to summarize, or should I just You have anything to say? Okay. So I guess we are not expected to vote on this. We're just going to move it to a date unspecified.
A motion.
But yeah, I would definitely encourage the city and parks to come up with something in the meantime, because our weather is getting worse. So yes, Commissioner Reddick.
I'll make a motion that we follow staff's advice and continue this item to a date uncertain. I'm not sure of the exact language, but incorporating a public hearing as part of that process.
I would second that.
We have a second from Commissioner Gossett. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gossett?
Yes.
Commissioner Reddick?
Yes.
And Chair Gorn?
Yes, please.
Motion approved to continue to a date uncertain.
Thank you. So Jill, you are finally up. We're ready for director's report because I think we are.
I am. Thank you, Chair Gorn and commissioners. I'm just so delighted with Ocoee's Planning Commission debut that I can't stop smiling. So she's terrific, and Scott has been coaching her, and it's just really nice to have staff development. Director report. We have the you got some email today where we're trying to navigate the meetings for the rest of the year. Typically we would election day would be the city council meeting. This year it happens to be the planning commission's meeting, and we have been advised by the city clerk and others that we should not be meeting on election day. And so we were advised to cancel that meeting. And so instead of doing what we would sometimes do in November, which is cancel the meeting the week of Thanksgiving, we really do need to have a November meeting. And we want to make sure that we would have a quorum on November 22nd. And I am sorry about this, but I think this is a weird year, and we just would really like to hold that session. I know I do my pies on Tuesday, so I don't know what I'm going to do this year, but we know it's disruptive. I think I've heard from 2 of you. So if you could just let us know an email, take a look at your calendars and give us a heads up about that. We really appreciate it. We do plan to bring you that process update that I spoke about last month. We've been preparing to do that. We've just been very busy, so that would be one of the items. Moving on to other things that are going on. We have a really big day tomorrow with director items. 2 of them are administrative and do not require hearings. 84 Valencia, there is a proposal for a new large detached structure. It's 616 square feet. It's not an ADU. It's a little bit unusual. And so we are daylighting it through our Zoom meeting process, but it's not in the appeals jurisdiction and does not require a hearing. 660 Filbert, this is also an addition. It's attached to an existing single family home. It's 572 square feet. The reason why it requires a coastal development permit is because it's more than 10% of the floor area of the existing home. Then we have 3 hearings. So these will all be held similar to your hearings, and we take public comment and are clear about the decision-making process at the end. The first one is at 923 to 925 Miramontes. This is, you may know it as Farmer John's property. This is an application for a coastal development permit and a lot line adjustment. It's a very small lot line adjustment. It's something that doesn't involve any development. And it's really a cleanup to get the lot line slid over just a little bit so it doesn't go through a house. So it's just really cleaning things up and making the lots more conforming. 648 Myrtle. This is a project with three things going on. It has a large new detached garage. It's really quite big. A new detached accessory dwelling unit, and an addition to the house. So three things going on. They're all in one story. And so if it was just the ADU, it would be administrative, but we had all this other development that went with it. And so we have put this into a hearing. And then finally, 775 Railroad Avenue. This is I consider it to be a pretty significant refacing of a home. And it includes the addition of a roof deck. And we always have a hearing when we have a roof deck and on an existing house where there wasn't one before. So this has been noticed for public hearing. The site is posted. All of these have been posted, and where we need newspaper ads, they've all been run in the paper as well. Let's see here. A director hearing tomorrow, Bridget. I think we're starting early at 4 o'clock because it was a big agenda.
Correct.
Okay. This week, very strangely, we had Planning Commission director hearings, and we have an Architectural Advisory Committee item this week. It's only a sign permit, but it was really important to the applicant. So we went ahead and had this meeting. It's for 727 Main Street. This is the Stark Gallery. This was a project that the Planning Commission reviewed some time ago. It's under construction now. It's a remodel to bring in a gallery where there had been an engineering firm previously. This is the site across the street from the Water District office. For council for the rest of the year, we are intending to bring forward the building code adoption as well as the Measure D allocations. That's done annually. And my final update is to let you know how things went with the Coastal Commission on October 14th. The short-term rental ordinance, along with it also includes the home occupation ordinance, was brought to the commission. Previously, I'd reported to you, the Planning Commission, that Coastal Commission staff had proposed pretty significant changes from the City Council adopted ordinance. They were very concerning changes. And staff prepared a detailed response to these policy terms, and we offered an array of reasonable compromises. At the hearing, I presented with Mayor Reddick and Councilmember Jimenez, and we also had some community members speak. I do want to note several were Spanish speakers, and the Coastal Commission's translation process can be a bit difficult. You really have to sign up in advance, and they even want speakers to provide their comments in writing in advance. And that's really, in my opinion, a real barrier to entry to participating in the process. So we set up a room over at the Ad Hoc Community Center and invited folks who needed Spanish translation to come, and we provided donuts and coffee, and a translator that translates for the City Council, Victor Hernandez. And they were able to address the commission, and it was really beautifully done. And I was just really proud of what our community members were able to present and talk about housing preservation. I'll tell you that the Coastal Commission took the input to heart and appeared to be substantially supportive of a short-term rental ordinance for Half Moon Bay that would both support the short-term rental operations while also protecting housing stock. They continued the item. They had a really full agenda, so they couldn't really pick through details in the moment. But they advised their staff to work with us some more on the compromises, and they wanted a little bit more data. And we're working on that right now. And we're very hopeful that there'll be a revised recommendation. I don't know yet. The staff has a very strong opinion about this. So we'll keep you posted, and once the new hearing date is set, we will notify you. And if we send any more written communications to the Coastal Commission on this item, we will copy you on them. We think it's really important for you to stay in the loop. And
Jill,
that's my report.
Jill, are they, is Coastal Commission now open to new input for anyone who wants to comment?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course, anyone who wishes to, they will open the public hearing again, much like you will on a continued item, and any additional written input. They typically want to have it at least a week before the hearing. That gives them an opportunity to do several things with it. One is they get it to their commission, they post it on their website, and then they typically prepare an addendum to their staff reports to respond to substantive input that they receive.
Great.
Okay.
That's really good news, actually.
We are hopeful.
Because
it's not done, but we are hopeful. Okay.
It looked like it was going to be bad news. So not bad news is good news.
It is good news.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. As for Planning Commissioner communications, I did want to say that Commissioner Gossett and I both attended a Planning Commission training for planning commissioners in Santa Clara. And one of the things they raised and suggested was that we have some kind of that we raise the idea of ask for ex parte communications if anyone has had ex parte communications at every meeting. And so I will start to do that at our next meeting. We haven't really had a lot of ex parte communication to reveal. And so both Commissioner Gossett and I were not entirely clear on what that would entail. And so I don't know if we would do that individually with Winter, or whether that would be some kind of session with all the planning commissioners. I imagine that the ones who have been here a while know more about it than we do. So maybe it would be individual. But in any case, that is something that was suggested. I'll try it for a while and see how that goes, and see.
Chair Gorin?
Yes.
I just wanted to say I'm happy to provide some guidance on that. I think I have, over my few years sitting with the Planning Commission, have noticed that when an individual item comes up where there has been an ex parte communication, commissioners rightfully disclose that. But if we wanted to have a more formal opportunity, I think that this section at the end kind of brings up the same kinds of communications as well, outside of the individual agendized items, but I'm happy to maybe provide a definition or a reminder about what kinds of communications we should be disclosing to make sure that applicants and the public get a fair public hearing on items where it's required.
That would be helpful to me, and maybe we have a joint call with Commissioner Gossett and anyone else who wants to participate. Commissioner Reddick, you had your hand up.
Oh, I just wanted to say thanks to Director Ekus and the team for the energy and the effective work with Coastal Commission on the short-term rental question. I know that must have been an intimidating prospect at one point. And again, I'll say welcome to Ocoee and tell her that not all her projects will probably be so easy.
I think that's a good bet. If we are done, and it looks like we are, we would need to adjourn. Anyone want to do that?
I'll move that.
We have a motion to adjourn. We have a second.
Second that.
We have a second.
Okay.
Gossett.
Commissioner Gossett.
Yes.
And Commissioner Reddick.
Yes.
And Chair Gorin.
Yes, please.
Meeting adjourned.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, you guys.
Thank you.
So be well, everybody. Take care.
Bye. Night.